27 years of the mullahs' rule in Iran has brought about nothing but suppression, poverty and corruption. The most basic human rights are violated systematically. To date, 120,000 people have been executed and more than 500,000 have been imprisoned for political reasons. A list of 20,000 victims of political executions was published recently by the resistance movement. In 1988, in an atrocious crime against humanity, more than 30,000 political prisoners were massacred in a matter of a few weeks. Their unforgivable crime? Opposition to the fundamentalist rule of the mullahs. Sentences like amputation of limbs and stoning to death of prisoners have become common practice. Women are also suppressed in the most brutal manner, and students are cracked down upon whenever they stage protests in schools or universities. The situation, however, has become much worse since Mahmoud Ahmadinejad became president. Some people have been hanged in public or sentenced to death so far. In the factories, protests by the workers are crushed. Protesters have been repeatedly gunned down in Iran's different provinces, including Azerbaijan, Kurdistan, Baluchistan and Khuzestan. The United Nations has condemned Iran in 53 different resolutions for gross violations of human rights. On December 23rd, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution imposing sanctions on Tehran for its refusal to suspend uranium enrichment activities that would enable the regime to obtain nuclear weapons. The horrific situation of human rights and the absolute suppression of any dissent prompted Iranian intellectuals to leave Iran through Kurdistan for Iraq. They ultimately settled in a camp just outside Iran's borders called Ashraf. The camp soon became well known inside Iran as the focal point of hope for the Iranian people. Aware that there are thousands of dedicated Iranians just across the border, Iranians inside the country were encouraged to stage demonstrations and protests in opposition to the mullah's fundamentalist rule. Built on arid land in the middle of the desert, Ashraf is now a city with 4,000 residents. Many of them are former political prisoners, and many happen to be university graduates from Europe, the United States and Canada. They all have one thing in common. They are anti-fundamentalist Muslim intellectuals, seeking a pluralist, peaceful, democratic and secular government. Viewing these dissidents as an existential threat, the Iranian regime began a major campaign to eliminate them. It did not take long before 13 Iranian jet fighters bombed the city. The mullah's next move was to launch a massive missile attack, including Scuds. The next chapter began in April 2003 with the start of the Iraq War. The inhabitants of this city had a choice to make. They could leave to make sure that nothing would happen to them, or to stay in spite of all the dangers. They decided to stay in order to keep alight the resistance against fundamentalism, similar to those who chose to resist Hitler's Nazism. While the people at Ashraf declared neutrality in the war against Iraq, the mullahs saw the conflict as an opportunity to conspire against them. They struck a deal with the US and Britain, promising not to meddle in Iraq if Ashraf was bombed. The city was heavily bombed. Dozens were killed, including many women. The bombing left the city in ruin. Once the Iraq War ended, Ashraf residents restored it to its original state. A fully equipped hospital and 2 universities were also built, where most fields including medicine, law, engineering, computer science and music became part of the curriculum. A large library stocking different kinds of books, 2 stadiums, 1 indoor and 1 outdoor, and the Museum of the Martyrs of the Resistance were also built. These places are frequently visited by many Iranians from all over the world, as well as Europeans and Iraqis. The city also has a modern shopping center, a bakery, a beautiful mosque, as well as replicas of historic sites in Iran, including the famous bridge on the Karun River in southwestern Khuzestan province, and the tomb of Hafiz, the legendary Iranian poet. A concert hall was built where the many musicians and artists, including an all-female orchestra, perform. Ashraf has been visited by people from all over the world. Tens of thousands of Iraqis have to date visited the city to attend different political, cultural and athletic events. On June 16, 2006, some 10,000 Iraqis representing Sunni, Shiite, Christian and Kurdish groups and tribes attended a gathering at Ashraf where a declaration signed by 5,200,000 Iraqis was made public. It demanded that Iran stop its intervention in Iraq and emphasized that Ashraf residents should enjoy refugee status in Iraq. Ashraf city has today emerged as the main focus of hope of both Iranians and Iraqis in the resistance against Islamic fundamentalism. Iran's fundamentalist regime, especially with its new hardline president, is trying to obtain nuclear weapons. This effort is in line with Khomeini's dream of establishing an Islamic empire. However, the regime considers Ashraf city as the main barrier to achieving its objectives, which explains why Tehran has stepped up efforts to destroy Ashraf city and eliminate its residents. The city's power supply has been cut. Following a demand by Ahmadinejad's government, Iraqi officials cut off fuel, medicine and food rations to the city. This was in direct violation of the 4th Geneva Convention and other international laws. The pipes supplying water to Ashraf from the Tigris River were blown up twice in the summer. In the face of the mullahs' efforts to close down Ashraf city and have its residents expelled or extradited, a major international campaign has been waged across the world demanding respect for the rights of Ashraf's residents. The situation, however, has not improved. The new Iraqi government has embarked on new efforts against the city. Since most of its ministers and officials are influenced by Tehran, they have been publicly talking about expelling Ashraf's residents. Ahmadinejad had personally demanded the extradition of Ashraf's residents. In July, Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki visited Tehran and promised to expel Ashraf's residents. At the same time, one of Tehran's most notorious proxies in Iraq, Mullah Abdul Aziz al-Hakim, has been vigorously pursuing this matter on behalf of the Iranian regime. Without question, sending Ashraf city's 4,000 residents to Iran would result in a humanitarian disaster. These anti-fundamentalist Iranians would definitely be massacred if returned to Iran. Thousands, including human rights advocates, parliamentarians, jurists and ordinary citizens have joined this call in Europe, the United States, Canada and Australia. To achieve this humanitarian goal, they have formed societies and held conferences demanding the Iraqi government respect the rights of Ashraf residents and reaffirm their political refugee status. The European Parliament also set up a committee to defend these rights and sent a mission to investigate the issue in January 2007. The issue is also being followed and publicized by INTV, Iran's national television, which runs TV programs 24 hours a day, in order to publicize this case and enlist support for Ashraf residents. A group of the most prominent international lawyers is also working on this matter. The clear fact is that Iran's fundamentalist mullahs can and must be stopped from exerting hegemony in the region and threatening world peace.
That region, and the world for that matter, cannot afford the lethal mix of fundamentalism and nuclear weapon. So I want to thank you again today and all those who have been coming here, some with their families, over these 100 days to demonstrate your support for those in Ashraf city and in the wider sense for the ambitions of the Iranian resistance. Iran will be free, and I dare to hope freedom will come sooner than we think.